Ladies and gentlemen, what if the real danger to your family is not a spell, not a curse, not some invisible force working in the shadows, but patterns you've been ignoring? What if the chaos, the tension, the distance, and the confusion in your home are warning signs, and you've misread them? Before you blame the supernatural, you must examine the structural. Tonight, you're about to uncover the truth behind the 7 signs that seem mysterious but are deeply practical. And once you see them clearly, you will never look at your family struggles the same way again. Ladies and gentlemen, before you assume that a spell is destroying your family, you must first understand a powerful principle. What you cannot explain emotionally, you may mislabel spiritually. Throughout history, when people faced repeated conflict, sudden division, financial pressure, or emotional instability, they often concluded that an external mystical force was responsible. But wisdom demands that we examine foundations before we blame forces. There are patterns that can destroy a family, and if you do not recognize them, you will give credit to superstition instead of confronting reality. The first sign people often interpret as a spell is constant confusion and misunderstanding inside the home. Communication breaks down, words are twisted, assumptions replace conversations, but confusion is not necessarily mystical. It is often the result of unexpressed expectations and unmanaged emotions. When people stop listening but continue reacting, disorder grows. Disorder, if not corrected, feels supernatural because it spreads quickly. The second sign is persistent division. Family members begin isolating themselves. Unity weakens. Small disagreements escalate into major arguments. But division thrives where pride is protected. When apology disappears and ego dominates, relationships fracture. Pride is more destructive than any imagined curse. It blocks reconciliation. It resists accountability. It feeds on being right rather than being restored. Another sign many misinterpret is sudden financial strain or instability. When resources shrink and pressure increases, fear enters the household. Fear changes behavior. It makes people defensive. It magnifies tension. Yet financial challenges often result from poor planning, lack of communication about spending, or absence of strategic vision. A family without shared goals will drift. And drift feels like attack because it produces loss without clear direction. Emotional withdrawal is another powerful indicator of internal breakdown. When laughter disappears and silence becomes heavy rather than peaceful, something is misaligned. But emotional distance is usually the fruit of unresolved hurt. Pain that is not processed becomes bitterness. Bitterness hardens hearts. Hardened hearts cannot nurture connection. Some interpret recurring illness, exhaustion, or stress as spiritual assault. But chronic stress weakens the immune system. Ongoing conflict elevates anxiety. Lack of rest reduces clarity. When the home environment is tense, the body responds physically. The body does not lie. It reflects what the atmosphere produces. If your home lacks peace, your health will often reflect that instability. Another sign is the loss of shared vision. When a family stops dreaming together, stops planning together, stops building together, it begins to deteriorate. Vision is the glue of unity. Without vision, individuals pursue isolated ambitions. Isolation weakens structure. Structure weakened over time collapses. This is not mysticism, this is misalignment. The 7th sign people frequently describe is an unusual increase in external influence. Outsiders begin to shape opinions more than family members. Friends, social media, or extended voices gain authority inside the home. Influence without boundaries creates distortion. When loyalty shifts from inside to outside, fragmentation follows. Now understand this clearly, it is easier to blame an invisible force than to confront visible dysfunction. It is easier to accuse darkness than to address discipline. But responsibility is power. The moment you accept that what is happening in your family may be the result of patterns, not spells, you regain authority. Authority begins with leadership. Every family requires leadership rooted in humility and service. Leadership does not mean control, it means example. If you desire unity, model communication. If you desire respect, demonstrate it. If you desire peace, practice restraint. Silence can sometimes protect, but silence can also suffocate. When issues are ignored, they grow. Healthy families address conflict early. They do not allow resentment to ferment. They choose dialogue over distance. You must also establish values intentionally. A family without defined values is vulnerable to chaos. What do you stand for? What principles govern your decisions? If integrity, honesty, forgiveness, and discipline are not actively taught and modeled, they will not automatically appear. Discipline in finances reduces stress. Discipline in communication reduces confusion. Discipline in time management reduces neglect. Many crises are preventable through consistent discipline. Discipline is not punishment, it is protection. Guard your environment. What enters your home through conversation, entertainment, and influence shapes atmosphere. Atmosphere shapes attitude. Attitude shapes action. If negativity dominates your environment, expect tension to multiply. Replace criticism with encouragement. Replace sarcasm with sincerity. Replace suspicion with transparency. Forgiveness is another powerful safeguard. Unforgiveness keeps wounds active. Active wounds infect relationships. When forgiveness is practiced, healing begins. Healing restores trust. Trust rebuilds unity. Shared rituals also strengthen families. Eating together, praying together, discussing goals together, celebrating small victories together. Unity is not accidental, it is cultivated. If you sense patterns of destruction, gather your family and speak openly. Not with accusation, but with vision. Identify the behaviors that must change. Create agreements. Hold each other accountable. Accountability prevents repetition. Education is also critical. Many families suffer because they were never taught conflict resolution, financial literacy, or emotional intelligence. Seek knowledge. Read. Learn. Invest in growth. Ignorance amplifies dysfunction. Most importantly, restore purpose. A family anchored in purpose withstands pressure. When each member understands their value and contribution, belonging strengthens. Belonging reduces our rebellion. Rebellion often emerges where identity is unclear. Do not underestimate the power of consistent love expressed through action. Love is not merely affection, it is commitment to the well-being of others. Commitment endures discomfort. Commitment chooses restoration over retaliation. If you have believed that an unseen spell is responsible for your struggles, replace that belief with empowerment. You have influence. You have choice. You have the capacity to alter patterns. Destruction is not inevitable when responsibility is embraced. Evaluate communication. Evaluate finances. Evaluate emotional health. Evaluate influence. Evaluate vision. Where there is misalignment, implement correction. Where there is pain, pursue healing. Where there is confusion, seek clarity. A family is like a garden. Neglect invites weeds. Attention produces fruit. If you see weeds, do not blame the soil alone. Examine the cultivation. Water intentionally. Remove what harms growth. Protect what nourishes life. Strengthen spiritual grounding through unity and shared values. Strengthen emotional bonds through empathy. Strengthen practical stability through planning. When these foundations are reinforced, what once appeared mysterious becomes manageable. Fear magnifies problems. Courage confronts them. Replace fear with strategy. Replace suspicion with conversation. Replace helplessness with leadership. The narrative that something external is destroying your family can create passivity. But when you shift the narrative to responsibility and growth, you activate transformation. Families are not destroyed overnight. They decline through patterns. And patterns can be interrupted. Stand up in your home with clarity. Speak life where negativity has spoken doubt. Introduce structure where chaos has ruled. Model humility where pride has dominated. Choose unity where division has attempted to settle. Transformation begins with awareness. Awareness leads to action. Action sustained produces change. Change repeated builds culture, and culture determines destiny. Continue identifying unhealthy patterns, replacing them with disciplined habits, reinforcing shared values, nurturing open communication, cultivating forgiveness, strengthening leadership, and restoring vision until your household reflects stability, clarity, resilience, growth, and intentional unity built on responsibility rather than fear, and intentional unity built on responsibility rather than fear. And as you deepen this understanding, recognize that fear itself can become the very force that destabilizes a home. When people believe something dark is working against them, they begin to behave defensively. Suspicion increases, trust decreases. Words are interpreted through anxiety rather than clarity. Fear changes tone. It changes posture. It changes perception. A fearful mind will see attack where there is only misunderstanding. That perception alone can generate the very division you were trying to prevent. You must guard the psychology of your household. The mind is powerful. Whatever narrative dominates your thinking will influence your decisions. If the narrative is helplessness, your actions will reflect passivity. If the narrative is empowerment, your actions will reflect leadership. Families thrive when someone chooses to shift the narrative from blame to building. Examine the language used in your home. Words create atmosphere. Constant criticism creates insecurity. Constant comparison creates resentment. Constant negativity creates heaviness. But encouragement creates confidence. Gratitude creates warmth. Vision creates excitement. The tongue can either cultivate life or cultivate destruction. What you repeatedly speak over your household becomes the emotional climate everyone breathes. Another factor often misunderstood is generational patterning. Sometimes behaviors repeat across generations not because of curses, but because of learned habits, conflict styles, financial mismanagement, emotional suppression, or instability can be passed down simply through observation and imitation. Children absorb what they witness. If they see avoidance instead of resolution, they will replicate avoidance. If they see aggression instead of dialogue, they will replicate aggression. Breaking a destructive cycle requires awareness and intentional change. Leadership within a family must be courageous enough to confront patterns without condemning people. Correct behavior, not identity. Address actions, not worth. When correction becomes humiliation, unity weakens. But when correction is guided by love and vision, growth becomes possible. Time investment is another crucial element. Many families drift apart simply because they do not invest time in one another. Busyness replaces bonding. Schedules replace conversations. Technology replaces presence. When connection weakens, misunderstanding increases. Intentional time restores familiarity. Familiarity nurtures empathy. Empathy strengthens unity. Transparency builds security. Secrets create suspicion. If there are financial decisions, discuss them. If there are concerns, voice them respectfully. If there are expectations, clarify them. Unspoken expectations often produce disappointment. Disappointment, when unaddressed, produces frustration. Frustration, when repeated, produces division. Accountability should not be feared, it should be embraced. Accountability means everyone understands their role and accepts responsibility for fulfilling it. When responsibilities are neglected, strain increases on others. Strain produces resentment. Clear roles reduce confusion. Shared responsibility reduces imbalance. You must also cultivate emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize what you feel, understand why you feel it, and choose a wise response. Reactivity destroys stability. Thoughtfulness builds it. Before responding in anger, pause. Before assuming the worst, inquire. Before escalating, evaluate. Maturity is demonstrated in restraint. Financial stewardship remains a powerful stabilizer. Create budgets. Establish savings goals. Communicate about priorities. Financial clarity reduces fear. When money is managed with strategy, tension decreases. Strategy produces confidence. Confidence reduces anxiety. Spiritual alignment within the family must also be nurtured intentionally. Shared values and shared moments of reflection strengthen bonds. When families pray, reflect, or express gratitude together, They reinforce unity at a deeper level. Unity grounded in shared belief systems becomes resilient under pressure. Do not underestimate the impact of unresolved trauma. Past wounds, whether from childhood or previous relationships, can surface in family dynamics. A harsh tone may trigger an old memory. A disagreement may awaken past abandonment. If trauma is ignored, reactions will seem disproportionate. Healing may require honest conversation, counseling, or deliberate emotional work. Seeking help is not weakness, it is wisdom. Celebrate progress, even if small. If communication improves slightly, acknowledge it. If financial discipline strengthens gradually, affirm it. Encouragement reinforces positive behavior. What gets affirmed gets repeated. Resist the temptation to involve outsiders in internal matters prematurely. Seeking wise counsel is beneficial, but broadcasting every conflict invites unnecessary interference. Protect the dignity of your household. Discuss matters with maturity and discretion. Teach conflict resolution explicitly. Disagreements are inevitable, but destruction is optional. Teach family members to listen without interrupting. Teach them to express feelings without accusation. Teach them to pursue solutions instead of victories. The goal of conflict is not to win, it is to understand. Monitor stress levels. Exhaustion magnifies irritability. Lack of rest weakens patience. Overcommitment reduces availability. Sometimes what appears to be spiritual attack is simply burnout. Adjust schedules, prioritize rest, protect health. Model humility. If you are wrong, admit it. Apologizing does not reduce authority, it increases credibility. When leaders in the home apologize sincerely, they teach others to do the same. Humility diffuses tension. Reinforce identity within each family member. When individuals know they are valued, they behave with greater responsibility. Affirm strengths. Recognize contributions. Appreciation nurtures belonging. Belonging reduces rebellion. Eliminate sarcasm as a communication style. Sarcasm disguised as humor often conceals resentment. Over time, it erodes trust. Replace sarcasm with sincerity. Replace passive aggression with direct clarity. If there has been significant damage, rebuilding will require patience. Trust is rebuilt through consistent behavior, not promises. Consistency proves sincerity. Over time, patterns of reliability restore confidence. Teach gratitude as a daily discipline. Gratitude shifts focus from what is lacking to what is present. A grateful household radiates contentment. Contentment reduces envy. Envy often breeds unnecessary tension. Establish clear boundaries regarding external influences. Media consumption, friendships, and social exposure should align with your family's values. Exposure without filtration invites confusion. Discernment protects unity. Recognize that growth may feel uncomfortable. Changing habits disrupts familiarity. Some may resist initially. Stay patient. Change sustained over time becomes culture. Remember that strength in a family is not measured by the absence of conflict, but by the ability to resolve it constructively. Perfection is unrealistic. Progress is achievable. Encourage personal development within each member. When individuals grow, the family grows. Support education, support skill building, support emotional maturity. Growth increases contribution. Refuse to entertain hopelessness. Hopelessness paralyzes effort. Effort fuels transformation. Even if patterns have existed for years, change is possible with sustained commitment. Guard against comparison with other families. Yes. Every household has private challenges. Comparison breeds dissatisfaction. Focus on your internal progress. When tension arises, ask constructive questions. What triggered this reaction? What expectation was unmet? What can we adjust moving forward? Questions lead to insight. Insight leads to correction. Cultivate an atmosphere where vulnerability is safe. When people feel safe expressing fears and concerns, they do not resort to secrecy. Safety strengthens intimacy. Choose unity intentionally. Unity is not automatic. It is a decision repeated daily. It requires forgiveness, patience, discipline, and shared vision. As you implement these principles, you will notice that what once felt mysterious becomes understandable. Patterns once labeled as external attack reveal internal origins. And once origins are identified, solutions become accessible. Continue strengthening communication, deepening empathy, refining discipline, restoring vision, nurturing trust, reinforcing shared values, protecting emotional health, cultivating wisdom, modeling humility, practicing accountability, guarding your environment, investing time intentionally, and building a culture of responsibility that transforms instability into resilience and confusion into clarity, while reinforcing the structure of your household through consistent, deliberate, and courageous action that reshapes the future through intentional daily choices. And understand this, daily choices may appear small, but they accumulate into destiny. A family is not shaped by one dramatic decision, it is shaped by repeated patterns of behavior. If tension has been growing for years, it will not dissolve overnight. But just as negative patterns were formed through repetition, positive patterns can be established through repetition. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. A single emotional conversation will not heal a fractured relationship, but consistent, respectful dialogue will. A one-time financial adjustment will not guarantee stability, but consistent stewardship will. A single apology may open the door, but consistent humility will rebuild trust. You must measure progress differently. Do not ask, is everything perfect? Ask instead, are we improving? Improvement is evidence of life. Anything alive grows. If your family is growing in communication, growing in patience, growing in shared vision, then restoration is already underway. One of the most underestimated forces in a household is tone. Tone carries more weight than vocabulary. You can speak correct words with a destructive tone and still cause damage, but you can speak correction with gentleness and produce transformation. Monitor how you say what you say. Respect is communicated through tone as much as through content. Another dimension often ignored is personal discipline outside the home. If an individual lacks discipline in private habits, it will eventually affect public relationships. Undisciplined spending, unmanaged addictions, uncontrolled anger, or secret behaviors create instability. Personal integrity strengthens collective stability. When each member commits to self-mastery, the entire structure benefits. Teach the principle of cause and effect clearly within the family. Help each member understand that actions produce consequences, not as a threat, but as a reality. When children and adults alike recognize that choices shape outcomes, responsibility increases. Responsibility reduces chaos. You must also learn to separate personality differences from moral failures. Not every disagreement is a sign of dysfunction. Some conflicts arise because individuals process information differently. One may be expressive, another reserved. One may be analytical, another emotional. Diversity, when understood, enriches a family. But when misunderstood, it creates unnecessary tension. Study one another. Learn how each person communicates, how each person feels valued, how each person handles stress. Encourage private reflection. A family that grows together also grows individually. Personal time for thought, reading, prayer, or journaling strengthens self-awareness. Self-aware individuals react less and respond more. Response is measured, reaction is impulsive. Be cautious about labeling normal challenges as extraordinary attacks. Every family experiences seasons of pressure. Pressure reveals weaknesses that need reinforcement. Instead of panicking, analyze. Instead of accusing, evaluate. Pressure handled wisely produces maturity. Establish clear expectations around respect. Disrespect tolerated becomes disrespect repeated. But correction must be firm and fair. Consistency in standards prevents confusion. When boundaries shift unpredictably, insecurity grows. Stability in expectations fosters security. Celebrate unity publicly within the home. Speak well of one another. Affirm strengths openly. A culture of honor dismantles rivalry. Rivalry often emerges where affirmation is scarce. Another powerful element is shared responsibility in solving problems. Do not centralize all decision-making in one individual if collaboration is possible. Involvement produces ownership. Ownership produces commitment. Commitment strengthens loyalty. Guard against emotional triangles, where two members align against another instead of addressing issues directly. Triangulation creates hidden alliances and deepens division. Encourage direct communication. If you have a concern with someone, speak to them, not about them. Practice listening without interruption. Many conflicts escalate because people listen to respond rather than to understand. When someone feels heard, defensiveness decreases. Understanding builds bridges. If there has been betrayal, rebuilding will require transparency. Transparency rebuilds security. Security rebuilds intimacy. Intimacy rebuilds trust. Trust rebuilds unity. Do not neglect joy. Joy is not frivolous, it is foundational. Shared laughter strengthens bonds. Create moments of celebration. Mark milestones. Honor achievements. Joy reinforces connection. When mistakes occur, avoid exaggeration. Do not weaponize past failures during present disagreements. Address the issue at hand. Bringing up old wounds reopens scars that may have been healing. Encourage each member to articulate personal goals and dreams. When individuals feel supported in their aspirations, resentment decreases. Support creates partnership. Partnership strengthens unity. Model emotional regulation during conflict. If voices rise, lower yours. If tension escalates, pause the conversation. Leadership is demonstrated most clearly during moments of stress. Introduce family meetings if necessary. Structured conversations create space for clarity. Use them to review progress, discuss concerns, and reinforce shared vision. Resist fatalistic language. Statements like, "We will never change," or "This is just how we are," imprison growth. Replace them with constructive declarations such as, "We are learning and we are improving." Invest in education on healthy relationships. Read books together. Attend workshops. Seek counsel when needed. Growth is intentional. Protect private disagreements from public exposure. Broadcasting internal struggles can intensify shame and pressure. Preserve dignity. Acknowledge that transformation requires forgiveness not only of others but of yourself. Guilt can paralyze effort. Accept lessons, release shame, and move forward with wisdom. Create traditions that reinforce identity. Traditions anchor memory. Memory strengthens belonging. Belonging nurtures loyalty. Encourage gratitude toward one another. Express appreciation for small contributions. Appreciation fuels motivation. If external stressors such as work pressure or community challenges exist, discuss them openly. Understanding external stress reduces misinterpretation of internal behavior. Be vigilant about resentment. Resentment grows quietly. Address grievances early before they harden into hostility. Teach patience as a virtue. Quick tempers fracture unity. Patience preserves it. Recognize progress even when setbacks occur. Setbacks are not failures, they are feedback. Adjust strategies and continue. Maintain hope actively. Hope is not passive optimism, it is disciplined belief in improvement accompanied by action. When hope is alive, effort continues. Above all, remember that stability is constructed, not inherited. It is built through intentional conversation, disciplined behavior, emotional maturity, financial stewardship, spiritual alignment, mutual respect, and shared vision practiced repeatedly over time. Continue reinforcing healthy habits, dismantling destructive patterns, strengthening communication, cultivating empathy, modeling integrity, embracing accountability, prioritizing unity, sustaining discipline, encouraging growth, protecting dignity, and choosing responsibility every single day until the culture of your household reflects resilience, clarity. Why? Trust, maturity, harmony, shared purpose, and unwavering commitment formed through deliberate, consistent, courageous, and intentional daily decisions that redefine the trajectory of your family for generations to come.